Well, it might not be the most normal way of organizing the show. We just had a really nice conversation with Steve Sarkisian, who's going to be coaching this team, but in an effort to just try to move him along. The fact that he was able to carve out 12, 13 minutes for us is amazing, and we're so grateful to him for that. But let's allow ourselves now to take just one step deeper into the Texas Longhorns. I know this team really well. I've studied this team a lot this season. I don't know why, just with where their games fell on the calendar. We called their game against Kansas. We called their game against Oklahoma State. I think I've seen every single snap they've played this year on both sides of the ball. Outside of Alabama, amongst the 4 playoff teams, this is the team I know the best. So I feel really good about this breakdown. Hopefully you guys will get something from it. A few things you need to know about their offense, okay? Their offense is extremely good. Extremely good. I know I'm not breaking any news there, but the way they lay things out, I think Steve Sarkisian is as thoughtful a play caller as there is in the sport. Being able to set things up. There's 2 guys that I really admire how they call plays. 2 that they're put on this earth to do that. It's Mike Norvell at Florida State and Steve Sarkisian. And part of what makes them elite is being able to connect plays. So you run a run play, and then you have a play action off of the run play. And then you have a play action double move off of that play action play. And then you have a quick screen that looks the exact same. Like, there are certain layers that he'll get to throughout the course of the game, and they're all very methodically sorted out. So that is, I think, his best attribute, is being able to thoughtfully attack, make things look similar so the defense will acknowledge a tendency, and then boom, he breaks that tendency with the next layer of the concept. So he's amazing when it comes to that. A lot of their offense is predicated off of motion. Around 45% of their offensive plays are in motion at the snap. That doesn't include shifts. That's on the snap, there is a guy on the move. That's the 15th highest number in college football. You'd also be a little surprised to know that a vast majority of their passing attack is actually not play action, but it's actually RPO. That is, I think, a little bit different. They have the 3rd highest RPO percentage in college football, behind Oklahoma State and USC. USC is number 1 in the Power 5. Oklahoma State is 2. Texas is number 3. So a lot of what looks like play action maybe isn't play action. It's actually a run play, but you could spit it out to a receiver if the look defensively presents itself. Another thing, too, is a lot of their damage is actually done after the catch. You would think Texas, hard play action, throw it downfield, make things happen. Actually, about 58% of their receiving yardage comes after the catch. That's the 15th highest in the FBS as well. They have excellent weapons on the perimeter, but we'll start with their quarterback, Quinn Ewers, who I think has grown drastically over the course of his 2-year stint as the starter for the Longhorns. He does a great job of getting the ball out quickly, and he does a really good job, too. When he escapes the pocket, he keeps his eyes downfield. He's actually much better on the move than he was at any point last year. He has a 96.4 QBR. That's the 4th highest among qualifying quarterbacks outside the pocket. He's also excellent in the 4th quarter. He's number 1 in the FBS in 4th quarter QBR. And in the red zone, that's the area where they've struggled offensively. He hasn't been quite as good. They need to run the ball really well down there, and his QBR in the red zone is just 26. That's 107th in the FBS. So he's taken a great leap this year in conceptual understanding. He gets the ball out quick. He anticipates throws. He's oftentimes throwing it before the receiver even gets out of the break. That's even on downfield throws. So he does a really good job in the offense and understand how he fits. And he's also sneaky good when it comes to scrambling. Not an elite runner by any stretch, but he can keep you honest and has done that a few times throughout the course of the season. The running backs, as Coach Sarkisian talked about a moment ago, it's a really deep and underappreciated group. Jonathan Brooks was incredible, among the best backs in college football before he got injured against Kansas State. But stepping in to fill that void has really been a 3-headed monster. C.J. Baxter's the lead back. Jaden Blue's gotten more and more as the game's gone along, and he's actually their best back as far as yards after contact is concerned. Not really a make-you-miss guy, but he's got a great hesitation step before he one-cuts and bowls you over. And another guy that had a big role in the Big 12 title game is Keelan Robinson. He's pretty dang good. Pretty good out of the backfield, too, as a receiver. He's got great wiggle. So if he's out in space, he's a problem because he can really make you miss. At wide receiver, it's really 3 guys. You have Xavier Worthy, who's a little banged up in the Big 12 title game, but hopefully he'll be at 100%, have no limitations in the semifinal game. You have A.D. Mitchell, who's got great length, and a vast majority of his looks come in the end zone. He leads the team in red zone targets. He also leads the team in end zone targets. So the closer they get to the end zone, the more likely it is that A.D. Mitchell's going to be on the receiving end. Jordan Whittington's a guy that can really do it all. He's very reliable, and he's better after the catch than most people realize. And then J.T. Sanders, I think, is the matchup nightmare that you don't want to face if he's in a one-on-one situation against a linebacker or safety. So those four guys really make up a vast majority of what they do through the year. And then along the offensive line, it's a really good group. When you look at how long Quinn Ewers has before the first pressure arrives, it's 3.19 seconds. That's the fourth longest in the FBS. UTEP, Bama, and Utah are the only three that have given their quarterback more time before that initial pressure gets home. They only allow pressure on just 25% of Quinn Ewers' dropbacks. That's fifth in the FBS. So the offensive line across the board has done a really good job all season long. Moving over to the defensive side of the football, I think they are excellent on that side of the ball. They have some headliners, though, that we will start with. It starts up front. If you can handle their defensive tackles, you have a chance. Most teams can't. Byron Murphy and Tavondre Sweat. Tavondre Sweat recently won the Outland Award as the best down lineman in the sport. Understandable. I think Byron Murphy might even be a little bit more disruptive in a pass rush situation. You think about Washington. Washington's going to be dropping Michael Penix back. So Byron Murphy might actually have more of an impact on this game than Tavondre Sweat. But he is a run-stopping monster up the middle of that defense. 9% of the runs he faces, he stops at the line of the scrimmage. That's how good he is. He can provide a little pass rush, but it's more moving offensive linemen back. There is an undersized center in the game for Washington and Parker Brailsford, who's just 275 pounds. So that will be a matchup that you watch. I can't imagine a scenario in which Washington wants their center Brailsford in a one-on-one situation with either of these two guys. But if that does occur, that is advantage Texas there on the interior. I think their edges are much better than people realize. Ethan Burke has really seen snaps increase at times against pass-happy offenses, Oklahoma being the best example. He had 49 snaps against OU. I think he'll play quite a bit against this Washington unit, knowing that they're going to be a group that wants to snap it and try to push the ball down the field. He also played 40-plus snaps against TCU and Houston. All offenses that are somewhat resemble what Washington does. So I think Ethan Burke could have a big role in this game. He wears number 91. Barron Sorrell, I think at times has been dominant this year. The Kansas State game in particular, he was excellent in that game. Had 5 pressures on just 31 dropbacks and a couple sacks. So Barron Sorrell is really good as well. So keep an eye on him. And then you'll see some other guys that will get to the end of the line of scrimmage in obvious passing situations that can create some problems for him in the pass rush. Anthony Hill, number 0, is probably the best example of that, but don't sleep on Jet Bush too. He does a pretty good job on the other side. So their edges are really good. They're good in the interior. I think it's as deep of a defensive line group as you'll see in the sport, even though their edges don't get enough love. All the love goes to the tackles, and understandably so. Those guys are massive difference makers. At the second level, you have Jalen Ford, who is unbelievable. Going into the Big 12 title game, he had 665 snaps played defensively. That was 154 more than the second most snaps played on the team. I mean, this guy is always in the middle of the defense. He's very active. He has a great job of reading quarterbacks' eyes. He has made a couple plays on the ball this year, so you always got to be mindful with where number 41 is. He's a tackling machine that does a really good job making sure his presence is felt in pretty much every single game. We already talked about some of the other guys at the second level, including Anthony Hill. He'll play an awful lot. They do have quite a few freshmen that will be on the field at times. You heard Steve Sarkisian mention Malik Muhammad, but Derek Williams at safety, he's probably their best cover safety. Anthony Hill, who I referenced already. Leonga Leafau. They have a bunch of guys that are playing significant snaps on that side of the ball that are freshmen. So these guys are probably just operating under the assumption that freshmen get better over bowl practice. They're probably going to be better the next time out than they were the last time out, and that's a scary thing because they've been pretty good already this year. At safety, that's where I think they might have the biggest headaches. They have good players, but But as far as coverage is concerned, those guys have at times had some issues giving up big plays. Derek Williams, the freshman, he'll miss the first half with the targeting, but if he gets in there in the second half, you'll be able to probably feel his presence. He's excellent in coverage and does a really good job. Jaron Thompson, a little bit of a liability on the deep ball. He's a guy that I would be mindful of if I were Texas. I don't want him in one-on-one, especially against Rome Odunze in a one-on-one situation. That would not be ideal for the Longhorns. Jahdae Barron at nickel is really good. He's a very confident player, extremely confident player. He'll take chances, he'll jump routes. Sometimes those things pay off, and sometimes they don't. But he is extremely confident in his own abilities, and it's very evident with how he covers some of the guys that he'll face there in the slot. And then on the outside, you have a couple guys that have really kind of been in and out. Terrence Brooks has been pretty steady all year long. Malik Muhammad has really stepped up as the season's gone along in the absence of Ryan Watts, who has missed some time with some injuries at times this year. So top to bottom, front seven defensively, elite. Back end, occasional liabilities, but you heard Steve Sarkisian reference it. A lot of the yardage given up is circumstantial yardage, meaning it's throw-a-thon for the opposing team because they're in a big hole. So maybe those numbers are a little bit inflated. But this is an excellent group that is extremely well built from the inside out. They're built like Bama. They're built like Michigan. They're built like the best teams in college football. They are built with the offensive and defensive lines in mind, and they get better and better as the wideouts and company get better. So this is an elite football team that's balanced and create a lot of issues for you both offensively and defensively.